focus and see if we can catch some big F1s. Ooh. That feels like a prop fish. That could be a big F1 or a carp. Big F1 I'm saying. Oh yeah, massive F1. So these are the fish that you catch on worms. Size of that. For an F1. These nailed it as well. Right in the gob. Lovely. See if we can catch a few of them, then we're talking. Well, welcome to Weston Pools. This is the next episode of Learning to Win for Catch More Media. You've got me, Rob Swan, for the day, and we're at my favourite venue, Weston Pools. Absolutely love it here, and the sun's shining down in Oswestry Street in Wales. I've had some brilliant matches here recently, and now the weather's warming up. I've got a Fish Midlands qualifier tomorrow on the venue, and it's on Canal, Belvedere and Stretton Pool, and I've had 2 matches recently in the festival on Stretton and Canal, so I've got a bit of an idea how they'll fish, and I thought, I'm coming all this way down from Newcastle, so I'd best come and have a practice on the Belvedere day before, hopefully show you the sort of things that I'd expect to be working now, give a few things a try, and hopefully that might give me a little edge tomorrow, a cheeky practice. So come on, let's have a walk down to the Belvedere Pool. Don't know where we're going to be fishing yet, but let's go and have a little look. So like I said, the match is going to be spread across the Stretton, Belvedere and Canal. And Belvedere Pool, absolutely solid, and there's only going to be 10 anglers on there tomorrow, I've been told. The Canal's going to have 20 on it, which will be a little bit tighter than usual. So I think there'll be quite a lot of maggot fishing on there, and you'll probably need to draw the end pegs to catch some carp. So I'll leave that one. But on Belv, with 10 on, should be some great fishing. And I don't know if you noticed, but the sun is shining. So that always, at this time of year, makes worms start working. I'm gonna have a little go with worms today, I think. Now, worms is a tactic I've not done a lot of at all, so it'd be nice today to have a little play with it, have a go making the mix up. Hopefully, I've been told by Christian Jones that it should work. It might be terrible, but we'll find out, and at least I'll know for tomorrow if worms is gonna be the one. You can see behind me, it's the Belvedere Pool. Absolutely stunning place. I love Weston Pools. It's just such a nice venue to come and fish. So picturesque. Now, I don't think I'm gonna sit on this one, but look at all the fish on the top here. I don't know if you can see them, but there's fish everywhere. The sun is out. It's peg 12. You're in a bit of a corner here. They always like to sit in this. You see the wind's been blowing down here as well by the looks of it, all the scum on the water. I'll swap the camera around, and we'll have a little wander up the rest of the pool and decide where to fish. Wandering down the Belvedere Pool, and I think I might sit somewhere in the middle somewhere. I'm not totally decided. I've got the pick of the lake, which is always a nice thing. It's not very often I get to come pleasure fishing. I mean, this is peg 9. See the lily pad starting to come up. There's fish all in the edges. Just coming here, they're all splashed away. I know I'd get bites pretty much anywhere sat, to be honest. I do want to fish somewhere where I've got a couple of nice edges, because I think I want to have a nice day trying to work out what's the best bait catching the edge, because I feel like a lot of them big F1s on this venue love to sit close in down the edge, which is peg 9, 8, 7. So I could sit somewhere on this bank, or I could go and sit on the epicentre, peg 32. That's the famous Western clubhouse where everyone gets hammered on an evening after the festivals. Now, what I'll do is I'll have a little wander around and decide where to fish, and I'll catch up with you when we've got our gear and we're wandering down to the peg. Well, I've changed my mind. I'm going to sit on the flyer. Why not? Come pleasure fishing. Might as well sit where you know there's going to be some bites. So, and it's closest to the car park, so less of a walk. And I'm going to sit on peg 12, which I've been on quite a few times. It's not been winning all the matches recently, but it's a great peg. It's in the corner. Seems to be a lot of fish here today. And obviously, because I'm here filming on my own today, I can stick a camera across on that far bank if I need. It'd be nice and easy, some good filming. So, and I know for a fact it's got a lovely edge down there to fish, which will be nice to try. And it's also got a platform that way and that way, so it gives me loads of options, so I can try different things. I think I'm going to get loads of bites anywhere I sit today, so I don't think it'll be a case of not learning anything because I'm getting that many bites. I think anywhere on the lake I'm going to get loads of bites, so I think sit on this peg, nice out the way from everyone. Hopefully we'll get a load of bites. I'm going to go and get some gear, and then we'll sort of talk through the bait and the approach and what we think we're going to try out today. Very important when you come to Weston Pools, remember to dip your nets. Won't be putting any keep nets in today, but I'm going to be using a landing net, obviously. Well, hopefully. So I'm going to take my net to the to the dip tank, give it a dunk. Here we go. In the big tank, I wouldn't like to take a dip in there. Nicely dipped. Give it a rinse. There we go. Shop was closed. I'm a bit late today. Had a bit of a lie in this morning. This will dry out nicely in the sun anyway. You've got to dip them, then I'll just hang it on the tree so it kills any nasty bugs. I'm feeling worms. It's that sort of time when they're just getting ready for spawning. Sun's out, starting to heat up. Worms are either all or nothing, so I'm literally just going to get the rest of my gear out the van, on the trolley, and we'll go around to the peg and hopefully catch a few, learn a bit for tomorrow. That's what it's about. Yeah, just get dragged in all day. Big carbon F1s, let's go. We're all set up, peg 12 and Belvedere in the corner. Fantastic peg on paper, always is a good peg to draw the matches. You've got a nice big corner to your right to fish into, and you've got a cracking margin. On this venue, a lot of the edges are sort of like, can be up to 5 or 6 foot deep, which a lot of the time, you can still catch them, you can catch big weights in the edge, but on Belvedere in particular, you've got lovely shallow edges. This one in particular is around about 1 to 3 foot deep, 2.5 to 3 foot deep down in this little cut out to your right, which is perfect really for this time of year. The fish are going to be coming into the shallow water now, into the edges, and I want to try and find out if worms is going to be good to them. That's the number one task for the practice today. I'm going to be doing some other things as well, but I'm just going to start with that. I'm going to set that up. I've plumbed up a rig quickly, and now I'm going to do the bait. So I've decided to fish. I'll talk you through the gear, dead simple. I've gone for some I'd say quite heavy elastic, to be honest. I've gone for a long kit because there's a lot of carp in bells. And I know if you hook them on short kits and light elastic, you just end up playing them for ages, especially in the latter stage of the match, and you want to get them in a bit quicker. So I've gone for a long kit with that 15's Dura slip. Now, 15 Dura from Preston is an elastic I've absolutely loved using the last couple of years. I've had, well, loads of matches when I've been fishing for carp, and this elastic's been perfect. It's sort of like ideal for shallow fishing for carp, short fishing for carp, edge fishing for carp. If you're fishing mixed fisheries especially, if you know you're going to catch an odd F1 and some carp mixed in, this is perfect because it can handle a bit of both. If you catch an F1s at close range, it's perfect. You know, you get a bit of elastic come out, but you can land them nice and quick. And when you hook them carp, it gives you a brilliant chance to get them in nice and quickly. If I was fishing for somewhere where I was fishing for just carp, on this venue in particular, if I'm fishing down the edge, potting big balls of ground bait in, fishing really aggressively, then I'd use red hydro, but this 15 juice up's perfect. Then float choice, I've gone for a 0.4 bobby, which is sort of like a Maggie style float, but it's got a bit of a thicker tip. It's got a I think that's a 1.8 or 2 mil tip, which might sound quite thick, but when you're fishing with worms, I've not done a lot of it, but I'm feeling you want a bit of a thicker tip, just because the hook bait's quite a big hook bait. You're catching the fish on the bottom, dead sort of still. You're not fishing for fish on the drop or anything like that, so there's no need to be sensitive. I feel like the bites you're going to get are going to be positive. So you're going to be fishing a bit of worm on the hook, sat on the deck, nice and stable. So a bit of a thicker tip, carbon stem, nice and durable. That's the reason for that. And then 0.4, because it takes quite a lot of weight down the line. I've got like 1, 2, 3, 5 number 8s and a number 10 down there, which shots it up beautifully, which is pretty much the perfect weight, I'd say. Not too heavy, so the fish is feeling too much resistance, but nice to pin your bait to the bottom. So that's the reason for that. Dead simple, 0.19 end gauge main line. And then I've gone for 0.15 hook length. Same as what I was saying with the elastic, sort of matching it up so you're sort of balancing your tackle out. If I was fishing 0.13 with this elastic, I give myself a great chance of getting snapped by a carp because they'll just bottom. When you're sort of pulling with this elastic, they'll break you. So you need to make sure you're balancing your tackle. So I've literally gone for an 0.15 hook length, end gauge, 4 inch because it's about 3 foot deep. Dead simple. That's the rig really. I've got loads of other kits and rigs in my top kit case if I need them, but I'm not planning on doing that just yet. I just want to have a go with this edge, one thing at a time, and then we'll go from there. Now I'm fishing it quite close to myself today. I'm fishing it about a top kit. I'm fishing a top kit and my short 4 and holding that little bit of tape on my number 5. So I think that's about the perfect distance. If you go too far, then you can't throw little balls of worms in when you're not fishing it. And also I think you run the risk of fish coming off the bottom. Having said that, if it's rock hard, then maybe you might have to go to the next platform. I've got a lovely platform in the corner here, so I'll give myself that option, but I'm just going to try in here because it plums up lovely. What I'll do is I'll get the I'll stick the GoPro on, and I'll move the cameras around so you'll be able to see me plumbing up, and then I'll show you where I'm fishing exactly. One thing's for sure, this time of year the sun is starting to come out. The UV's a lot higher. Make sure you wear your sun cream. The UV is really damaging for your skin. I'm bad sometimes for getting it, but I always try and make an effort to. So I just want to try and encourage everyone to get some sun cream, factor 30, factor 50. You don't want to be getting burnt to a crisp. It's really bad for your skin, so get some sun cream for this summer. Keep it in your bait bag like I do, and you'll be nice and protected. Right, we're ready to go. So we're going to do a bit of fishing. Now, I'm not going to go too in depth about the bait in terms of the worm mix and stuff. We actually did a video yesterday with Christian talking all about that. So I'm just going to leave that to him. He actually did that for channel members. So if you want to check out exactly how to make the worm mix for this time of year, I don't know if it's even going to work today yet, but if you want to check that out, that's going to be available for channel members this month. But all it is, some of that reptile worm soil with some casters, some worms and a few micro pellets, and just did that about 10 minutes ago. It's actually starting to dry out a little bit now. So what I'll probably do is, what you want it to be doing is sticking to a little bit of a, when you sort of move your worm tub about, you want it to be sort of holding together. So I'm just going to add a little bit more water and just sort of slop it about a bit. And you see how it's sort of starting to hold together as one sort of slop. Probably slightly too wet now, but that'll dry out in the sun and be about perfect. But you can sort of pick a ball up, make a little ball, and it'll hold together. So, check that's recording. Yeah, you can see that. So what I'm going to do is have a chuck down the edge, and I just basically want to try and find out if worms is going to be good tomorrow, because it feels proper warm today. I bet it's 15, 17 degrees today, I reckon, in that sun especially. So I want to try and find out if it's going to be good tomorrow. If not, we're going to swap it to micros and just see, because I know micros and corn can be good on this lake, but I've never really had a really good day on it. So on the side tray I've got some micros, some worms for the hook, there's my worm mix, and some casters. See, we've got some nice little casters and a bowl of water. That's really important, just because you need to wipe your hands in between fish. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to start worm head on the hook. I'm not had a chuck yet, so I'm still in the dark to whether it's going to work. Hook a little, I've got a 14s Super LWG there, and I'm just going to nip a decent sized bit of worm on. So hopefully that'll be nice and attractive to the fish. I'm going to use a large guru kinder pot. Now, ideally you want them sort of rounded pots, but I'm not lucky enough to have one, unfortunately. Never really use them, and it's only worm fishing that you need them. They're sort of like a rounded pot. I think Preston do one, and I think there's some old Preston ones and some other ones, some cheap ones that Christian has. But all I'm sort of doing is dropping my hand in the water, picking up a little ball, swirling it around and stick it in the pot. Decent sized blob to try and, for the first feed. I think going first feed I want to feed a little bit more, because them fish aren't used to the bait coming in. In a match I probably would have been throwing some worms slop down here, but generally worms is quite an instant bait, so you can catch fish pretty quickly on it. So I've just slipped that ball of worms in. I'm just holding my rig over the top. I don't know if you can see that on the GoPro, but I'm fishing about 6 inch off the bank like I plumbed up before. Straight away I've got one. Oh, it's, yeah, a little tiny stocky. So it's nice little start. Whee! We'll net him. But he's a nice little start. I mean, it's not the desired fish that you want to catch on the worms, but I think it'll take a little while for them big F1s to turn up. And the great thing about worms is you can just leave your hook bait on, so you can recycle it. It's perfect. Another little blob. I'm going to go a little bit smaller this time. Pop it in the pot. And then just wet my hands, because I don't want to get my pole all horrible and mucky. My tackle's horrible enough as it is, so get off my spot, plop my worms in, put my rig right over the top. Now I'm just interested to see how many indications and signs I get like straight away on it. I know worms is quite an instant bait generally, and if them big F1s don't come in on it quite quickly, I'll be tempted to just try micro pellets and just see if that's loads better. And if it's not, then it might just be a case that the bait's not wrong, but the fish aren't coming in the edges, or that they're not feeding with this bright sun. I'll have to work it out and have a look. Little liner. So I'm just thinking in my head, I wonder if micro pellets would be better, but I'm going to give it a bit more time. I'm going to give it a few feeds. Just had a little indication there on the float. Come on. Got one. What's this? Oh yeah, little F1. So, see that red jewel slip, like I said, you still get plenty come out even for these small F1s, which is what you need. That one's about, what's that, £1. Nice fish in it. They're not exactly what you expect to catch, but you do catch them on worms. You'll get a bit of everything on worms, which is always a good thing. However, I have had days on here before when I fished worms, and you just tend to catch, if it's not right, like it's not perfect, you just catch an odd stocky, crucians, eyed, skimmers. You'll get bites on it, but it's never, you need to be catching them proper stamp fish down the edge, I always think. If you can catch them 2 to 3 pound F1s, then you know you're going to put a big weight together. So again, I'm going to wet my hands, little blob, bit of a bigger blob again, take a bit off. That's the sort of size I'm going for. Wet my hands again. So many blonde F1s sat on the top. They just sit around all day, don't they, them blondes? Have a look, have another blob. So I'm going to plop my ball in and put my hook bait right on top. And you can just see with that ball, it hits the water and goes shoom, straight down to the bottom. That, ooh, little sort of dink straight away there. You know you got it right when that ball just disappears straight to the bottom, leaving a little cloud on the top. And on the best days, them fish sort of home straight in on that ball, and you get a bite more or less instantly. Ooh, little sign, or a little bite, something, probably a small fish, I think. Now in a match, I'll be probably throwing little balls of worms on this all day. Wouldn't start on it in particular, but I wanted to start on it today because I felt Wooders pleasure it, and I thought we might get some bites pretty quickly. Now, I'd probably be in a match situation on this peg. I'd flick a rig into that corner where them fish are sort of sat up, sunning themselves. On this venue, when you've got spinners and end pegs, oh, there's a blonde F1 right by my float. You got spinners, end pegs. Them areas always hold carp, and like today, you'd definitely catch some carp flicking. Otherwise, I'd fish probably hard pellets or maggot short, and then fish casters shallow. So many things you can do, and a lot of them methods I've kind of practiced before, and I've got confidence. So we've come here to have a little practice doing something a bit different. So I'm going to do this to start with and see how we go. It's not filling me with confidence, I won't lie to you, but that's what we're here for. We're learning. I'd rather find out that it's not any good today than tomorrow in a match. So I've got some corn in my bag and some micros that I've done. So after a few more feeds, I'm going to have another feed now. After a few more feeds, I'm going to slip a grain of corn on. Oh, my worm come off, no. Slip a grain of corn on, just see if micros is any better. Another little blob of worms. Nice and wet. Only a smallish size ball. Plenty casters, chopped up worms. I've just chopped the worms like the size of a caster. So they're quite small. I don't think you want them too big. Now, it'd be interesting to see if this goes under. And if it doesn't, I'm tempted just to try micros and just see if that makes a difference. Got one. See, this looks like a slightly nicer F1. Yeah, better fish, probably £1.5, which is what we want to be catching on these worms really. Lovely F1, Weston Pools, nailed right in the top lip. Oh yes, just about. I'm slipping back. See, that's quite a good sign. It wasn't very fast, but we haven't been feeding it for long. You know, I'm in the tree, I haven't been feeding it for long. So there's potential for it to still be good, but I'm not going to feed, I think I've been maybe feeding it slightly too much. So I'm just going to try a bit of a smaller ball. You don't want to overdo it. Still early in the year. And you're only fishing for F1s, you don't have to put a lot of bait in. I don't think you need to with these worms. Right. But what I will say is it didn't nail it. It didn't like sort of float flies under, one on, whack. It was like a weird sign, like it sort of picked it up and just dragged it along the bottom. It was strange. Dead important to sort of think about how much you're feeding. So I just want to play about with the amount and the size of the balls. When I was on Stretton the other day feeding maggots, is so much better just kindering in like 20 rather than throwing loads in. I think you get too much bait on the bottom and that can proper like make it hard to get them on the hook because they've got too much choice, too much bait spread around, and you just end up foul hooking them. Give them a bit less bait, give them less choice. Ooh, little sign, and you'll get them on the hook a bit easier. Now it'll be very interesting when I make the change to micros to see the difference, see if it's any better. I think I will change it just to try it. I'll give this, I'm going to fish on now for another sort of 20 minutes, see if it gets any better, and I'll come back and report how it's been. Well, this isn't quite going to plan in a sense because I don't think the fish are really feeding that much. I don't know if this bright sun's put them off or if it's the worms. So what I'm going to do is, I'm actually quite fancying a go trying to mug a few fish because on these warm days, and I think it's going to be the same weather tomorrow, flicking a rig at these F1s is a brilliant way of catching them. So all I've got is a little short top kit with, don't need the back shots, a number 3 dibber, tiny little dibber, takes barely any shot, like a couple of number 10s. Set it about 10-inch deep. And what I've got an 18s Super LWG on. I'm gonna hook one of these little white pellets. Now these are the best mugging pellets I've ever had. They're actually Messingham feed pellets. I got a little while ago. I don't know if they're still that colour, but they're like basically white. And I think they stand out. They fall dead slow because I've got barely any oil in them. And I can just see, I could do with my sunglasses, but I've left them in the car. But I can just see a nod, fish cruising around. And I think a nice, ooh, he had a go at it, that one. Missed him though. There is an odd fish milling around up in the water. See, there's one down here. See if I can get him. Ooh. Sometimes it will come proper close range. He didn't like that one. He didn't like that one bit. A lot of them are like in this corner. I can see an odd one just milling around, and I think got one. See, that's how quick it can be when you do this mugging. Them fish aren't necessarily feeding when the weather's warm, and you might just have to use this time to catch them fish. Like, it's a little lovely F1, beautiful fish, and you can catch, actually a blondie, you can catch phenomenal weights on Western Pools by using this method. Right, look at that for a fish. Yeah, if you can hold him up. Stunning, probably a £1.5, chunky little fish. Pop him back. And white pellets are so good. I think maggots can be a really good bait as well. But I just want to try pellets today, just to see what they're like, because I know they eat maggots. But if the pellets aren't working, maggots is a fantastic bait. I can't really see any, but there's one on the far bank there. Like I said, if I had my glasses, I'd probably be able to see a few more. But you just gotta keep your eyes open. And what I'm gonna do is just keep throwing an odd little ball down the edge in the hope that we can drop into. There's one here. See if I can swing it in the right place. Ooh, we missed him. I'm just swinging that little dibber, and I think it's important to use a little one to sort of make as little disturbance as you can when you've got one. See, when you're fishing in the right spot, it doesn't take long to get one. Be a nice F1, I think. And all the time, I'm going to be plopping little balls of worm slop, wet my hands, throw a little ball in down the edge. See if we can get this one in. Left one. That's what it's like in the springtime. They'll all sit up because they want to be in the sun. So this is definitely going to be a good tactic to have a practice with today. Another nice F1, and they get a lot bigger than that in here as well. So I'm going to have a little bit more time doing this, flick a rig about, see if I can catch any more, and then I'm going to have another go down the edge, and hopefully we'll be able to catch some fish on worms. And if not, then we're going to see what bait is best in the edge if worms isn't very good. Well, I had a good little spell mugging, to be honest, and it was quite nice to have a little practice on that, because I think hand-eye coordination is so important on that mugging, and I don't do a lot of it, so it was good to, I probably caught, I think I had 2 big carp, and one was probably about £8, and I had probably like 5 or 6 F1s, so that was quite nice. But what I'm going to do is, I'm going to have a little look down this edge now, because I've been throwing them little balls of worms in for probably half an hour, 40 minutes now, and I want to find out if it's going to be any good, and if it's not, then I can sort of discount it from a match tomorrow. But because if it could, this is the time of day, if it's going to go under, it's going to start going now, and if it doesn't, if we don't get a good little run now, what I'm going to do is plop that little ball in, so it just sinks straight down to the bottom. Should be able to see that on the GoPro. I think that's the beauty of having your mix right. Ooh, indication straight away. If you get your mix perfect, it'll just sink like a brick to the bottom. And that's why the rig marries up perfectly with this, I think. Because you've got that bulker shot, nice and heavy, keeps your rig as stable as it can be. You're going to get liners in that, aren't you? But it's as good as it can get. Now, if this doesn't start going under, I'm going to swap it to Micos and just have a look and see what it's like. I'll be tempted to go down to that next platform, to be honest, and have a look. There we go. Oh, what the hell's, what's that? Looks like an hide or something. Oh, trying to do me under the platform. Perch! What the? Oh no, that's never a good sign, is it, on worms? It's a good perch though. Size of that. See if he'll not spike me. Yeah. Size of that for a perch. Probably easily a pound and a quarter, something like that. Not the desired species, but it's a bite. I'm just gonna, that'll be about the right size worm, I think. Another little ball. Nice and wet so it sinks. I'll have another go. It's my marker. Oh, was that a flipping horsefly or something? Ooh, God, don't like them. Plop my ball, and I'm just dropping it nice and low to the surface of the water so it doesn't make too much of a plop. Bite straight away. Make too much of a plop. Sinks down. Get me float right over where that ball went in. So let's add that straight away on the drop. See, this is the kind of fish that you catch when it's all right on worms. What's that, a little stocky or something? Yeah. A little stocky. Look at that, little, what's that, probably just stuck on the net. Probably about 12 ounces, something like that. Lovely little fish. But we're getting bites now, which is good. But I think it's going to have to be a big F1 every chuck to fish this tomorrow. I just don't know if it's quite right. We'll give it another turn. That's the thing, I sound so unsure, but the things with worms, it's either all or nothing. It's either great or it's just crap, really. It won't like just get better and better. Whereas I know with micros I'll catch them. Because everyone fishes micros on here. Or ground bait. Oh, a little indication. Boink. We'll give this a few chucks and see if we can catch some big F1s. Got on. Oh. That feels like a proper fish. That could be a big F1 or a carp. Big F1, I'm saying. Oh yeah, massive F1. So these are the fish that you catch on worms. That's a £3 F1 easily, every day of the week. Size of that for an F1. He's nailed it as well, right in the gob. Lovely. See if we can catch a few of them, then we're talking. They're the proper old Belvedere F1s. So I'm going to get another bit of worm out. What I'm going to do, I'm just going to try threading my worm on a bit and just see if that works. So I've just been hooking it like a maggot, but I'm just going to try threading it on. Let it stay on a bit longer then and all. I think you want your worm to stay on as long as you can so it softens up. I've just threaded it on. And that time I did feed a slightly bigger ball, so I'm going to feed a slightly bigger ball again. It might be a case of tomorrow feeding one of these edges with worms, just plopping little balls in throughout the day, and on the other side I can fish my usual ground bait on micros, depending where I am. If I'm on this lake, I'll probably fish micros and corn if I was in one of my edges, but if it carries on like that and a few big F1s come in, it might be worth just plopping some balls of worms in. It might be a good little line to drop on, catch an odd stocky, tench or something. Then last hour it could start going under every chuck with a big F1. I think the water temperature will have definitely gone up a bit today. And it'll probably stay warm because it's going to be warm overnight. You can see how good that 15's Duraslip is as well. Handles them big F1s perfect. And it's not too strong to bump any clunk. Oh yes. That's another big F1. Come on! See that bite? That was a proper bite. That went straight under the bank as well. That's a big F1, isn't it? Oh yeah. They're the fish that you're trying to catch on worms. That's £2.5 at least. Beautiful fish. See if I can pick them up for you. Size of that. Put him back in. Don't want to drop him. Come here. See if I can catch, like I'll probably put like, well it's 2 for £6 there probably. The F1's always bigger than you think. And you know, you're gonna catch an odd carp in between probably. An odd stocky when you're not catching them. Leave that off bait on. My worm's proper chewed up, but I actually think that's quite a good thing. I'll have another go. See him catch a few more and then it'll give me enough confidence for tomorrow to try and catch them. And the only other thing I want to do is fish to that next platform with micros. Once I've got a bit of confidence that this worm's working here, I'm going to plumb up to that next platform and try feeding micros and just work out the best way of feeding them, whether it's with a big pot, kindering a sort of large pot every time. My gut feeling says a large or a medium guru kinder pot every time with micros would be quite good. Ooh, no indication. Oh, in a tangle. In a tangle. Steady. My gut feeling is it'll be good, quite good just kindering kindering micros with a bit of corn on the hook. But I can't say for sure, so I want to try it because I've not done it yet on here. They all seem to just Stretton and Belvedere. Definitely an odd one coming in, isn't there? But I'm not lining them up. Doesn't tell me it's brilliant. So, got one. That's a proper one. That's a good sign. Oh, where's he gone? Come back. Yeah, they're good F1s them. If you can catch a few of them in the match tomorrow, you'll be well on your way to a big weight. That's 3.5, £4, isn't he? They're not small at all. And it could just get better and better as the day goes on. It's a good sign that they're coming in and eating them, you know what I mean? A lot of the so if it was totally wrong, you wouldn't catch any of them at all. Have another go. If I can catch one more big F1 here, then I'll be pretty happy that I'll be fishing this tomorrow. As long as the conditions don't change overnight, it goes really cold or anything like that. Obviously I've got to bear in mind I am pleasure fishing, but it's still a good test. This is the kind of bait that'll work or it won't, so. I've definitely learned that they will eat the worms, which is good. Get a few liners there. Here boys, get that worm eating boy. Right then, I've had a little play around there and worms just didn't really get going. I caught a few big F1s in it, but I'm not 100% sold in it, to be honest. After fishing it for that long, I expect it to be a bit better than that. So I'm just gonna have a swap to micros and corn, just see if that's the difference. So then we'll have had a good session down the edge, sort of working a few things out. I think in the match tomorrow, it's kind of pointless me coming and just fishing shallow today, because I've done a lot of shallow fishing recently, so I kind of don't feel like I can learn too much doing that. But this is definitely, the edges was what I wanted to work out, whether micros and corn or worms was best. I know I'll get some bites short on probably maggots, start on pellets tomorrow. Totally depends where I draw, but if I was on here, I'd probably fish maggots short throughout the day and pellets early. But all I've got a medium guru kinder pot. Corn, the exact same rig, and that's a nice thing. I don't have to change me, that's the all out for the match. That's on Stretton. Just gonna kinder pot in, them micros. You can see they just fall straight to the bottom. Well, there's a fish there now. Just trying to get my rig in. Get my rig in position. It'd be interesting to see the difference on corn. I got a lot of liners and a lot of funny indications on worms, and I feel like that's probably because you get them little sort of perch and stockies playing with your worms, and I'm just interested whether if I've got corn on the hook, if it's a little bit more selective. Maybe, there you go. What's that? Oh yeah, that's a carp. So I don't know, we'll obviously have a few chucks and see, but it's a great sign about micros and corn. I mean, like I did say earlier, I did expect that to be the best bait, but I did want to try worms, and I feel like worms could be good in areas. It's so hard to say. It could change day to day, But if I was here tomorrow, you could throw worms on a top kit down there and it doesn't do any harm. You can always have an odd look on it, can't you? This is definitely one of the bigger carp that live in here. I feel like you will catch more of these on micros and corn, which is the bonus of it. Them big F1s aren't coming in on that worm. I don't think it's worth fishing it really. Obviously I had a few, so it's something to think about, but try and get this one in, try and let me break it. That's why that 0.15 and a 14 is nice, because you will get these better fish in as long as you take your time. Got him. Oh, he swam out. See that there? He bloody swam out. Come on. Teaching it to swim, this one. We got him. There's a lot of these sort of, it's a bit lively. These sort of stamp carp in this lake. Probably 7 or 8 pound. He's a good one. Oh yes. Ah! Come here. The hook's gone through somewhere. There it is. Hooked right in the scissors. Now if you'll behave, I'll hold him up for you. Beautiful Belvedere liver carp. Micros and corn. Put him back. At least 6 pound, probably more like 7 to be honest. Let's just see if that's a fluke. Obviously it's getting on in the day now, so that's going to be a bit of a factor. But I do think I would have caught on worms by now if they were going to be the bait. So if them carp keep coming in, I'll probably swap to a large kinder pot, give them a bit more bait. Pardon me. And at the moment I'm just going to fish this medium one, because if the F1s are there, I don't think a large could be a bit too much bait. You don't want more bait in your peg than it's getting eaten. You don't want to overdo it. That big set. I do think if the fish come in down here, you have a great day catching them. You could even fish ground bait down here. So many options. Because it's a bit shallower, ground bait could be really good. Putting like really wet ground bait and then feeding it in balls when you're fishing it. But I think on this lake, micros does seem to be great in the edge. But you've got the option to feed micros one side to a pallet maybe, and then fish ground bait in your shallower water. Have to just see where I draw tomorrow. I'll set the GoPro up behind me. Hopefully you'll get a bit of a watch of the match, so keep watching. Well, that's been a fantastic little practice session there. Literally just got back in the lodge from a fantastic meal in the Great Western Clubhouse. To be honest, for a fishery, besides being a fishery, it does restaurant standard food. It's absolutely cracking food in there. It's nice to go after a match, especially on the festivals. Absolutely love going in and getting a pint, getting some food. They've got some chicken on at the moment, some like Nando style chicken. It's absolutely awesome. We had some chicken thighs, some peri peri fries, some mac and cheese, garlic bread. Oh, a great way to finish the day. But it's been a great little practice session. Definitely learned a few bits for tomorrow. Like I said, I didn't really want to focus on sort of shallow fishing and short fishing today, because I kind of have an idea of what to do on them approaches, because I've had a couple of practices of late doing it. But I just wanted to have a little bit of a focus in today on the edge fishing, focusing in on obviously the worm fishing, which was really interesting, and then micros and corn late on. So I am thinking that worms could be worth a try tomorrow. It did, usually when it's not right, you won't go in and get any bites on it. So I am going to set it up tomorrow, I think. Maybe down the edge on a top kit somewhere out the way. I don't think it's going to be perfect, but you just never know. It could switch on. It could be brilliant. So worms is definitely going to be coming to the fore at this time of year now. Them fish are having a bit of a chew. The water temperature's rising every day. So it just could be something to give me a little edge tomorrow. I am obviously on Belvedere. I do think corn and micros will be a safe bet. I think you're going to catch a lot of carp on that and F1s, and I just think you can't go wrong with that. So I think that's going to be my main approach, because once I switch that to corn and micros today, it just got better and better. So it's hard to say really. It's been an interesting day. Definitely, the key thing I've learned is worms isn't terrible, and that's quite important. It might sound mad, but it's if it wasn't getting any bites in it today, I wouldn't have set it up tomorrow. So it's nice to have a look. Definitely going to set that up tomorrow. Definitely going to set up either micros and corn or ground bit in one edge, and then I think it depends where I draw for the rest of my tactics. So what I'll do is I'll see what happens tomorrow morning. I'll catch up with you at the draw tomorrow. Once I've got my peg, and hopefully it's a flyer, and then we'll have a great day. I'll try and film a little bit of footage tomorrow during the match, give you a look at what we're doing, and then we'll have a little catch up after the match tomorrow, maybe on my way home or before I set off back. Let you know how we've got on, have a little sort of conclusion, you could say, of the practice and the match. And yeah, it's just absolutely love Weston Pools. Accommodations absolutely fantastic. You got beautiful lodges, great food, fantastic fishing. It's stunning scenery on these lakes. It's just, you're surrounded by trees. It's just gorgeous. So if you haven't been to Weston Pools, come on down because it's an absolute stunner. We've got loads of festivals here. Me and Tom run them with the help of Debbie and Weston Pools. We give them a hand running them really, and it's just great. Some good money to be won, but also so we run super pools and stuff to give. So there's something for everyone basically. So there's some super pools, and or you can just go in the festival as it is, and which is quite cheap. So if you fancy go at Weston, come down, give it a go. There's open matches on weekends and during the week, and then festivals every month through summer. So I can't wait. So I'm gonna get myself to bed because I'm absolutely shattered. It's been a long old day. You can see it's getting dark outside now. It's actually starting to rain, so we'll see what that does to the fishing tomorrow. There's going to be loads of space. I've just seen the pegging actually for tomorrow. So the pegging is, on canal, it's pegged 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 23, 26, 33, 30, 26, 29, 33, 36, 42, 45, 46, 48. So it's really tight on canal. But it'll make it interesting because I wouldn't know where I'd want to be, to be honest. I think the out-and-out fly would be 16 canal. But if that doesn't win it, I wouldn't know where could win it because there's a lot of pegs that could catch that when it's like that tight. Because I think it'll be probably £100 job on canal. Maybe even a bit less because every peg's in. So it'll be interesting to see how that fishes. But Stretton and Belv could be one from anywhere. I'm really looking forward to being on there if I am, because there'll be some great fishing to be had. I think you'll need 150 to 180 on Belvedere and Stretton. Could be wrong, but I feel like you'll need a big weight on there tomorrow to win, because obviously you got to win your 20 peg zone. So because Belvedere's, I don't know what the pegging is on Bell. I think it's like 32, 1, 3, 6, 8, 12. Loads of pegs that could produce a winning weight. So we'll see. Hopefully, if I could pick 2 pegs on each section, 1 peg on each section, I'd go on 32 on Belvedere, on the Belv and Stretton section, or Stretton peg 5. So that I'd go Stretton peg 5 on Stretton. I'd go on 32 on Belv, and I'd definitely go on 16 canal, 16 or 48 canal, or 46 canal. Well, welcome back, guys. Now it's actually the morning of the match, and I've done the draw. Actually forgot to film it, so that is my bad. But I've drew peg 8 on canal. Now, this is a peg I do like. However, on the day, I did feel like it wasn't going to be good enough to beat peg 16 and 48. I did mention them pegs in the little section you've just seen before, and Matty Dawes has drawn 48 on canal, and Chris Lane has drew 16. So both fantastic anglers. They know exactly what they're doing at Weston Pools. So I knew I was up against it, but I still thought I'd go and attack the peg and hope some of them big F1s were there. Now, as you can see, I've just hooked into a fish. Now, at the moment, the wind is actually blowing off my back, and that did make me fancy it a little bit less. To be honest, them big F1s do follow the wind on canal, sorry. That one actually fell off. I think it was a little stocky. And yeah, so 8 canal, you're in a bit of a bowl, and I thought I'm going to need to catch a big weight of F1s and a mixture of Ide mixed in too. So basically the plan of attack for the day was to start on micros and corn in my left edge, just to try and get a little quick start on it, because I actually did that in a previous match when I managed to win the match, and it was good for a few stockies while I primed my shallow line. Now, I always think on this lake, you've got to catch a big weight of silvers along with your F1s to sort of make up your weight. So it's a lovely mixed day. That's why I love Weston Pools. You're going to get bites on shallow, edge, short. You need to catch a bit of everything, big F1s, carp and stockies. So plan of attack was to start down the edge on micros and corn, just to get a little start, and then go onto the shallow line pretty quickly. Now, obviously, it's not fantastic to start with. I haven't had any quick bites other than that little stocky that I lost. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give this a few more minutes, and then I'm going to head out shallow and try and clatter some of them great big eye that live in this lake, because they're usually ravenous. I always think give it 10-15 minutes of priming, then get straight on them, because once they've had their fill, they'll be gone. As you can see, I'm no longer down the edge, and I've actually just hooked into one on the short line, and that maggot short line can be a great line on the canal pool. It's got a right mixture of stocking, and then big F1s can rock up on it at any time of the day, to be honest, not just in the last hour. So it's a great line to put in. It only produced one bite on the day, which is the one you just seen. Even later in the match, they didn't come onto it, which was a bit of a shame. But I just dropped onto it after that edge line didn't really get going, just to give my shallow line an extra 5 minutes before I went on it. And you can see that wind's off my back, so my maggots are grouping lovely. I could even throw them if I wanted to, which came in very handy when I started fishing. So the plan of attack was essentially maggot short and micros on that edge. I also was throwing some maggots down my right edge on a top kitten one, because I've had some great success in that at other times of the day. Obviously, on the shallow line that I've literally just swapped to now, I didn't stay on that for long, that short line. And with the worms, obviously we did a lot of practice with them yesterday. However, as you can see, I've not drew the Belvedere pool. I've drew the Canal Lake, which we didn't actually practice yesterday. But thankfully, I'd had a bit of practice on that in the weeks prior. So I had a bit of an idea of what I needed to do. But in that left edge, I did plan to fish worms. I actually started chucking little balls of worms on it after I come off the micros. There you can see I've just netted the first eye of the day. And it never actually produced, but we'll talk a bit more about that as the day goes on. I did have a few fish on it. But that was essentially the plan. Maggot shallow, maggot short, maggot in the edge, and then worms in my left edge with a possibility of potting ground bait on it late. My thinking was, I'll fish worms to start with and see what it's like. And if it's no good, I can big pot ground bait to try and get me out of jail later on in the match if I need some carp to come in. So this shallow line, I always like to fish maggots on canal. I have fished casters in the past, and if you need a big weight of F1s, I do think casters are better. But when a big net of eye's concerned, you see there's another fish hooked, I just think maggots fall a bit slower. They're a bit more attractive to them silverfish, and it just keeps them in the upper layers a little bit longer, I always feel, where they're easy to catch. So I think I've started on a long line dibber rig. It's always seems to be my go-to, but it was essential to keep swapping rigs. I never really stuck on one rig all day. I just kept swapping between a long line dibber with like a 0.2 RW or a winter Maggie strung out. So a little tiny, really girly rig set 14 to 18 inch deep, and that seemed best. But for the first part of the match, I literally just stuck out on this shallow line, tried to ship an eye back every chuck, and to be honest, it was really good. Getting bites every single drop in. You just have to keep laying your rig in past the pole tip. That seemed really important. You can see I just laid that in past the pole tip, and then it's gone under straight away. Then I just sit off the back of your pole tip where they feel more safe, and then intercept your maggots as soon as it hit the water. So that's why that long line dibber is really good. You can see, just about to slip the net under that one. But I'll let this play out a little bit, let you see a little bit of shallow fishing, and then we'll catch up when I make a little change. As you can see, I'm still on this shallow line, and it kept producing for probably the first hour of the match. Now, I don't know if you've noticed, but I'm actually feeding before I go out. So I'm either feeding before I ship out or ship out halfway and then throw some maggots. And that always seems to be best when you're catching eyed that are really, really confident and up in the water. I find that by getting the fish coming straight up in the water before your pole tip's actually over the head, is you can trick them bigger, more wary fish to come up, and as soon as you flick your rig in, they won't know what's happening and they'll grab your 2 maggots. Quite often, especially when the water's clear, if you go over the top with your pole tip and then throw your maggots in, quite often them big-eyed will see your pole tip and they'll think better of. They'll decide to leave your 2 maggots just sat there, and they'll pick off them odd loose offerings. You see, I fed before I went out there, shipped out and hooked one straight away. So to be more efficient, I always find it best just to feed before you go out. And to be honest, that applies to most of my shallow fishing. I always like to feed before I go out, get them fish confident. But in this case of them eyed, I just find it even more important. You can see they were good stamp fish as well. That was probably another one of around about a pound. A good average on this canal if you get on the right size. There are some sort of 6 ounce ones too, but I'll definitely catch some of the better ones on this day in particular. Now you can see that I'm feeding all my other lines, throwing some maggots short and then throwing them maggots long again, shipping my rig out and just flicking it past. And if I don't get one, I'll feed some more bait, try and bring them back into the area, lift and drop, flick my rig past again, and hopefully nail one. The best rig on the day was definitely this long lash dibber, so that just consisted of a dibber with a long line above it, and that just allows me to keep my pole tip away from the feeding fish. Well, we are around about 90 minutes into the match now, and as I expected, them eyed have become a little bit more difficult to catch. Usually on this lake, for the first hour, hour and a half, 2 hours, them eyed can be really easy to catch, often hooking themselves against the pole tip, but as you thin them out, they get a little bit of grub in them. They don't want to feed quite as confidently. Usually you'll end up missing a few more bites. You can see I'm having to slap my rig in, I'm missing bites. They just come a little bit more tricky to catch. A good little trick though, as you can see, I've got my white section behind me now, which I didn't have before. And that just enables me to push a little bit further past my feed and try and trick them more wary fish. Usually I like to start a little bit shorter, let me catch them fish a little bit more efficiently. When they're really easy to catch, obviously you want to try and put as many of them in the net as possible. I always feel like catching 40-50 pound of eyed, you can stick them on the scales at the end and it's a massive boost. And obviously them F1s will be feeding more confidently later in the match, and that's when you need to catch them. That one's just managed to do me in the lily pads. There's actually a set of lilies that haven't quite come up yet. I could feel them with the plummet. I knew they were there, but I didn't really have much choice. I had to fish on top of them, otherwise I'd be fishing at an awkward angle. And usually I did feel like that bit of cover would hold some extra fish. But this is essentially how the early part of my match panned out. I did catch an odd-eyed for the first half of the match, but they've become a lot more trickier. I actually been fishing a bit more of a strung-out rig now. That long line dibber became less effective. As them eyed weren't coming right up in the upper layers, I often find, as it was on this day, fishing a more strung-out rig with a nice slow fall. That winter Maggie, it's got a really sensitive tip. It's a 3B8 one. And I set it around about 2 foot deep, but I can change it from anything from 14 inches up to like 2.5 foot. Because I've got a nice long line on it. You can see I'm constantly slapping that pole tip in. Slapping the pole tip in. Slapping the rig in. Just to create a fall of the bait. And I'm constantly loose feeding. It's so important with that shallow fishing. Just never put your catty down. Keep that bait raining in through the layers. Try and draw fish into your peg, because they're only going to come in when they can see that loose bait falling through. You can see why it's so easy to go through 6 or 7 pints of maggots in a match when you're constantly firing them in. But when you're not getting as many bites, like I am at this point, feeding more often is the way to try and draw some feeding fish into the area. So we're now into around the second half of the match, and that shallow line totally died on me on the day. So strange. No F1s were feeding in this area. I think the pressure on the lake certainly helped them shut up shop, or they'd followed that wind into the bowl, because obviously it was blowing really strongly off my back at the start of the match. As you can see, I'm having a little go on my maggot short line, but that never really produced anything on the day, just the odd perch and stocky. So that line kind of was redundant, and the same with the short line. Now I'm going to have a little go on worms down the edge, down my left. I've been plopping little balls in, and this is actually my second or third look, and I hadn't managed to net one, but I thought I'd have a little go now, just to sort of get into my head whether worms was going to be good going to the second half of the match, the latter stages, or whether I was going to have to change it to ground bait to sort of encourage some big carp to come in. But I certainly wasn't too hopeful, but I had to try and be positive, stick to my plan. You can see I'm keeping that shallow line nice and primed up in case I could get running that late on. So important to keep it primed up throughout the day. You can see I've just hooked into a rather large carp down the edge, and I'm sorry to say it actually is foul hooked. I'll give that away now. I'm actually going to speed this next section up because it took a rather long time to get in. So I'm going to speed this next section up because otherwise you'd be sat here watching me get run a merry dance by a large mirror carp on the pole. I basically played it as hard as I could. It was hooked right in the tail, so it run me all the way around, tried to break me, and you wouldn't believe this is actually on 0.15 hook length, 0.15 end gauge. But I only had 13 hollow from Preston Innovations in a long kit, so I thought if I play it gentle, I should be able to get it in. You can see while I'm playing it, I'm taking my time, because this is going to be a big bonus on the day if I could land it. So I think on hard days, it's important to make sure you land these big important fish, even if they are foul hooked, they all count. I didn't really know at the time what was winning the lake. I felt like I had a half decent net of fish up to this point, and with a little arrival in the last hour, I might be able to pull something out of the bag. So I just kept pulling and pulling, trying to wiggle it into the net. It kept swimming out. At one point, I actually dropped my landing net pole into the water trying to net it. Trying to scoop a 10, 12 pound carp. See there? Almost got him. There we go. Had to try and wiggle him in without him swimming out. He tried to swim out 3 or 4 times, but we got him. A massive bonus on the day. So the plan at this point in the match really is to try and catch a few more of these fish down the edge. And when I caught this one, I did think that perhaps ground bait could be good. Given the carp that I've come in early, I thought maybe if I feed ground bait, I might be able to get a few of these big lads to get their heads down and have a little feed on a big bunch of dead maggots. So I was going to persevere with worms for a little bit longer, and then maybe in the last hour start big potting some loose ground bait, really wet, to try and draw some of them fish in. Essentially the plan is just rotate my lines, both edges, short and shallow line, and hope that I start getting a few bites as the day sort of rolls on into the last hour of the match. So I'll keep plodding on, rotating all my lines, and I'll catch up with you guys going into the last hour. Well, we're now into the very latest stages of the match, and to be honest, it's been quite uneventful. Most of the day, I kept persevering with all my lines, feeding them maggots on that shallow line. See, I just foul up something down the edge because, as you'll see, I'm getting my big black pot and big potting ground bait down the edge. After around about 3.5, 4 hours, them fish weren't responding to the worms like I'd hoped, and I felt like I was quite far behind. I expected the lads to be catching bigger weights on the other end of the lake on 16 canal, 48 canal, where the wind had been blowing. So I knew I needed a big arrival of fish. So as you can see, I'm potting some ground bait. I started potting 200ml of really overwetted ground bait. For anyone interested, it was marine halibut and green swimster mixed together 50-50. Takes on loads of water, that mix does. So for anyone fishing ground bait down deep edges, they're actually 4 to 5 foot down the edges on these lakes. So even though it sounds mad, feeding ground bait does work. Often when you're fishing that line, you have to feed it in a ball to get it down to the bottom. Fish a big bunch of red maggots on the hook. Sadly, them big fish didn't really make much of an appearance, although I kept persevering with it right up to the end.
down my right hand edge, the maggots just didn't get going. I had a few crusions on it, but no real big F1 like arriving. And then that short line was the same, no bites on that short line. I kept trying it, hoping for a late run, but it just didn't happen. Same with that short, same with the maggot shallow line, that just died completely. And by the right at the end of the match, I just gave up on it and stopped feeding it completely to try and focus on my short lines. But that's around about how my match finished, really. Biteless, to put it plainly. The whole lake seemed to shut down the last hour, and Niall Evans next to me was the only person I could see netting an odd fish on the bottom underneath his maggots. I did set that up and give it a go, but it wasn't right, perhaps because them lily beds are on the bottom. Quite a lot of rotten vegetation might have put them off in my swim, or maybe the aerator he had the fish to might have just given them fish a little bit of confidence. But sadly, not the frantic end to the match that I was hoping for, but it always pays to keep persevering with your lines, because you really don't know what you're fishing for and whether you'll get them few extra important fish at the end of the match.
Managed to have 85 pound dead, so a nice day's fishing, but not enough. Matty Dawes has weighed 150 pound from peg 48 on canal, so a good peg as well on the end. I think he's caught shallow down the edge, so a massive well done to him. You still got to catch him. It's not definitely not a gimme that peg, so he's done well to manage to win the leg, so he'll be through to the Fish Midlands semi-final. Chris Lane's second, unfortunately, gutted for him. He's 7 pound short on 16 canal. And yeah, Niall Evans next door to me on peg 6 has actually had 106 pounds, so he's done really well. Still, I don't know if that's maybe worth a section or something. So it's been a bit tough in this area. Last 2 hours it just shut down completely. Running through the match again quickly as a bit of a sort of round off. I started down the edge on micros and expanders and just didn't feel like that was quite right. I started down to my left down the edge there, because that's how I started last week on the festival, but it didn't seem quite right. And I primed my shallow line for like 15 minutes and went straight on it, and to be honest, that was a good move. And I slayed them hide for like the first hour and a half. You catch one a chuck basically, you get the other one fall off, but there's loads coming your peg the first hour and a half, so it's really important to make the most of them. I feel like I did, but then after that I've not really caught on anything else. Nothing's really come on down the edge where I threw maggots. Nothing really come where I fished worms. The only thing I'd probably do differently would be to persevere with the worms, maybe, because I basically stopped feeding worms down that left-hand edge and started potting ground bait in a hope of some carp coming. But you're only here to win the lake, and I felt like worms just wasn't going to be good enough and sort of give me a chance of winning it. I knew I'd need £100 plus, so I wanted to try and give myself a chance of drawing a few carp into the peg, and that's just ruined it. Like, when you've got that much ground bait in your peg, when you've got small F1s and stockies and stuff coming in, you can't catch them well enough, so it always ruins your peg if them carp don't come in. But you got to take a risk. But then again, down this side where I threw maggots, where it was really good for me last week on the festival, that's been crap. I think I've had 2 tench and a little stocky on it, so nothing's come in the edges. Maggot short again was crap, didn't catch a single F1 on that, whereas last week I caught really well on it, so it shows the different days. I don't think I'd change that particularly, because I feel like that's the line that you can catch a really good run on late on. Shallow again was just petered off and died. I tried switching it to casters and feeding some casters later on, but that didn't really make any difference, didn't catch anything. Niall next door actually dropped onto the bottom underneath it, and he caught some little stockies, some F1s, and I did set up that rig and give it a go, but it wasn't any good whatsoever. So wouldn't change much, but that's match fishing. I feel like I've fished an alright match, just not enough fish in the area. I think you got to draw them pegs if you're going to win the matches. But I've enjoyed my days fishing, loads of them beautiful big-eyed. But hopefully you've enjoyed the little practice session and then a few updates from the match today. I'm going to probably get out and do an off one. So let us know in the comments if you like the concept, if you think it's good, what you do differently, if you've got any venues that you'd like me to go to and have a go at. So yes, hopefully you enjoyed, and until next time, ta-da!